She texted, "I'll be late, huge traffic." It was one of those small, ordinary messages that sound harmless until you notice the weight hiding in the pauses. I saw the 3 dots blink for a moment, vanish, then appear again, like she couldn't decide how much to say. I offered to pick her up. Just a reflex. A simple, harmless gesture. She replied fast, "No, it's fine. Please don't." The word please stayed with me longer than the rest. It wasn't polite. It was protective. That was when I understood something had shifted. I spent the next hour pretending not to care. I made dinner, half-watched a show, tried to make the room look less like waiting. My phone stayed face up on the table, silent, the screen reflecting the lamp above it. I remember thinking that if she texted again, I wouldn't answer right away. I wanted to sound occupied, balanced, not needy. But she didn't text again. The night stretched itself thin. By midnight, I realized I was checking the time only to measure absence. It's strange how quickly a routine becomes a pattern and how fast a pattern starts to dissolve. We'd met months earlier through work. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet conversation that felt easier than most. She had a voice that made ordinary sentences sound like secrets. I mistook that calm for closeness. I told myself she understood me because she listened, but really she was just kind. The first time I asked her out, she said she was busy. The second time, she said she wasn't sure. When she finally agreed, I treated it like a victory instead of a beginning. We had coffee that turned cold while we talked. I thought we were honest. Looking back, I realized I did most of the talking, filling the silences she left open. I thought she was shy. Maybe she was just tired. It took me too long to see that. After that night, she became quieter. Shorter messages, slower replies. Still friendly, but the warmth was thinning, like light fading under a door. I told myself she was stressed, distracted, that work was pulling her away. I didn't want to believe distance could appear without a reason. People like reasons. They make endings bearable. The night she sent that message about traffic, I knew it wasn't the highway she was avoiding. It was me. She didn't owe me an explanation, but I kept searching for one. That's what we do when something ends without warning. We turn confusion into evidence, replay every word, every look, trying to find the exact frame where things cracked. I scrolled through our messages, reread the early ones, the small jokes, the warmth that had once felt natural. It was still there, frozen, proof that I hadn't imagined it. But memory is unreliable when you're lonely. It always edits itself in your favor. I thought about texting again, something simple, neutral, drive safe, but it sounded desperate in my head. I deleted it before sending. That was the last message I never sent. I tried to sleep, but sleep doesn't come easily when the person you're waiting for has already left in their mind. I kept hearing the buzz of traffic in my imagination, picturing her car idling somewhere under yellow streetlights, her hands gripping the wheel, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Maybe she was alone. Maybe not. Either way, she'd asked me not to come. That was what mattered. I turned the phone over so the screen faced down. It felt like a small act of surrender. The next morning the city looked unchanged, but everything inside me had tilted slightly off-center. The coffee tasted bitter. The mirror looked unfamiliar. It's a quiet kind of grief, losing something that was never truly yours. No drama, no final scene. Just the slow realization that your role in someone else's life has already ended while you're still memorizing your lines. For a while I kept expecting her to text again, to offer some neutral sentence I could read too deeply into. She didn't. Weeks passed. The space she left became routine. People say time heals, but that's not true. Time just rearranges things until you forget where they used to fit. I started noticing her name less often, not because I'd stopped caring, but because caring without hope eventually burns itself out. I'd still think about her when I saw red taillights stacked on the highway, when the evening news mentioned traffic delays. Little reminders disguised as coincidences, each one softer than the last. I didn't hate her. I couldn't. Rejection doesn't always come with anger. Sometimes it just leaves you quieter. I think she sensed what was happening long before I did. Maybe that's why she stopped it gently before it could turn into something unkind. Looking back, I'm grateful for that. She drew a line I might not have seen on my own. I used to think love was something you earn by persistence, by showing up. Now I think it's something that either meets you halfway or doesn't at all. You can't negotiate your way into someone's heart. You can only wait at the door until you realize it's locked for a reason. Every so often, I still see her name somewhere, a tag in a group chat, a shared post, and I feel that small, harmless pull of recognition. It's not longing anymore, just memory checking in. I wonder if she ever thinks about that night, the text, the word please. Probably not. It was just another message for her. For me, it was the quiet start of an ending I didn't know was already written. Sometimes I imagine answering it differently, saying okay, drive safe, and leaving it at that. Maybe things would have ended the same way, just with less noise in my head. Maybe the silence afterward would have felt lighter. But there's no editing real life. There's only understanding it too late. Tonight, writing this, I realize I never wanted to fix anything. I just wanted to understand how something so small, a message, a pause, a single word, could unravel an entire idea of connection. Maybe that's what love is for some of us, a mirror that finally stops showing the reflection we expect. I still check my phone before bed, not for her, just out of habit. The quiet after the screen goes dark feels familiar now. Comfortable, almost. I've learned to live with the traffic, the slow, endless movement of thoughts that never quite reach their destination. Days turned into something weightless after that text. I stopped expecting her name to appear on my phone, but the habit of looking didn't vanish. I'd unlock the screen without thinking, glance at the empty notifications, then set it back down like an object I didn't recognize. The quiet between us began to sound different, less like rejection, more like air I was learning to breathe. I kept remembering small things, not because they mattered but because they were the easiest pieces to hold. Her laugh, the tone she used when she said good morning, the faint scent of rain that seemed to follow her. Memory doesn't ask permission. It arrives, sits beside you, and stays until it decides to leave. I caught myself analyzing the shape of the silence. There's a rhythm to it, almost predictable, like the pulse before sleep. I realized most of my days were built around waiting for interruptions that never came. Once I stopped waiting, time stretched wider, slower. The world didn't shrink. I just occupied less of it. I went to work, answered questions, nodded in the right places. People said I seemed calmer. Maybe I was. Or maybe calm is just exhaustion that learned better posture. Nights were harder. The city outside my window moved in soft fragments, distant cars, elevator cables humming through the walls, a neighbor's television bleeding through the floor. Those sounds used to keep me company. Now they reminded me how little space a single life takes up. I thought often about how easily people drift apart. One unreturned message, one unanswered call, and suddenly the connection that felt certain becomes theoretical. I wondered if she felt relief when I stopped trying. I hoped she did. Relief is a kind mercy. It means the pressure has finally left the room. The truth is, I never wanted her to feel cornered by my presence. I just didn't know another way to show care without sounding like need. That's the danger of loneliness. It disguises itself as kindness and calls it love. I started writing again, not about her but about the quiet itself. Words became small containers for feeling, shapes I could set down before they spilled. Some nights I'd fill a page, other nights only a line. It's strange how silence grows heavier when you try to measure it. Reading it back later, it felt almost detached, as if someone else had written it. Maybe that's progress. Distance sometimes looks like healing when you squint at it. I deleted our old messages one evening, not out of anger but practicality. The phone needed space. So did I. The act was slower than I expected, each swipe a small goodbye I hadn't prepared for. When it was done, the chat list looked blank and clean, a surface with nothing to reflect. I sat there staring at it longer than I should have. The emptiness wasn't relief or grief, just neutrality. That might be the purest feeling I've had in months. I still think about that night sometimes, the way she said please. There was something final in it, but also gentle. It took me a while to understand that gentleness isn't invitation, it's protection. She was protecting herself, and maybe, in a way, protecting me too. It's hard to stay angry when you see that clearly. I began to notice how much of my life had been built around noise, the constant hum of messages, screens, schedules. Without it, the silence became a mirror. I saw how quickly I filled absence with narrative. Every pause, every delay, I turned into a story about me. But most pauses have nothing behind them. They're just pauses. That realization was oddly comforting. I think that's what this stage is, learning to let meaning dissolve without chasing it. I stopped trying to remember her voice. Memory has a cruel way of erasing people into symbols if you hold on too tight. Now when I picture her, it's not her face I see but a still image of a street at night. Red lights reflected on wet asphalt. Maybe that's how my mind keeps it safe, abstract enough not to hurt. I've learned that fixation doesn't always mean obsession. Sometimes it's the slow process of untangling your thoughts from someone else's outline. You watch yourself relearn how to exist unobserved. That's what I'm doing now. Living small, eating at the same cafe on weekends, reading headlines without caring about them. The world continues, politely indifferent. Occasionally, when traffic reports come on the radio, I think of her name, then of the word please, and then of nothing at all. Each time it fades a little faster. There's a strange satisfaction in that fading, like watching fog lift from a field you once got lost in. You don't cheer for clarity. You just accept it. Tonight, writing this at my kitchen table, the air feels still. The refrigerator hums like a low memory. I'm not waiting for a message anymore. I'm not counting hours. I'm just here, listening to the quiet trace its own pattern across the room. It's not peace exactly, but it's close enough. There's a kind of stillness that doesn't ask to be named. It arrives one morning without ceremony, and you notice it only because nothing inside you is struggling anymore. I think that's where I've ended up. Not healed, not whole, just still. The days fold neatly into one another now, unremarkable but steady. I wake, make coffee, listen to the slow sounds of the city starting. I work, eat, read, sleep. The pattern feels safe, like a room I finally learned to live in. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for a thought of her to appear, like checking an old wound to see if it still aches. It does, faintly, but the pain is clean now, manageable. I don't fight it. I let it pass. I've learned that silence isn't the absence of connection, it's what remains when all the noise is gone. It's what you're left with when you stop trying to fill space that isn't yours. A few days ago, I found her contact still saved in my phone. Just her first name, nothing else. I didn't delete it. There's no need. It's only a word now, a quiet placeholder for something that used to mean more. I don't think she'd remember the night with the message, or the tone in her pleas. For her, it was probably just another conversation in a long week. That thought used to sting. Now it feels right. Not everything we experience needs to echo in someone else. Some feelings are meant to exist only inside us for a while, then fade. I go on walks more often now. The streets look different when you're not searching for anyone in them. I notice small things: the flicker of a traffic light, a leaf caught in the gutter, the low rhythm of footsteps behind me. The world feels less personal and more alive that way. I used to think meaning came from being seen. Now I think it comes from seeing, quietly, without expecting anything back. There's freedom in that, though it's a lonely kind. Nights are quiet. The phone stays dark on the counter. I don't wait for messages anymore. I sometimes scroll through the news, find nothing worth staying awake for, and close it again. The clock glows faintly at the edge of my vision. The sound of the refrigerator, the hum of pipes, everything becomes part of the same low, breathing silence. This is what life sounds like after wanting. Not the absence of feeling, but the end of its noise. I don't know if I'll fall in love again. Maybe I will. Maybe not. Either way, I'll recognize it differently now. Less as a hunger, more as a conversation that only works when both voices want to be heard. I think about her sometimes, but not in color anymore. Just outlines, shapes of memory without weight. The way the night felt after she said please. The way I finally understood that distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. That realization stays with me, not as pain but as instruction. I keep it like a note in my pocket, gentle reminders of what silence can teach. Tonight, as I write this, the streets outside are nearly empty. A car passes, its headlights glancing off the window, and then nothing. Just the dark settling back into place. The world feels paused, but maybe it always was. Maybe I was the one who kept mistaking movement for meaning. I close the notebook. The sound is small, final. The air feels cool against my skin. Somewhere, miles away, she's probably asleep, unaware of the story that once unfolded quietly in someone else's head. That's how it should be. There's no moral here, no regret left to dissect. Just the faint hum of the night and the steady calm of being alone without being lost. I think this is what peace really looks like, not joy, not closure. Just the quiet acceptance that some people pass through your life only to show you the sound of your own silence.